Okay, we're live.
All right. How's it going, Andy?
Yeah, good. How you doing, Brian?
Not bad. What a day to be doing this, huh?
I know. How timely. All
Yeah,
right,
it's an
so
absolute bloodbath.
yeah. Look, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers. Today is Thursday, November the 10th, 2022. Uh, we're watching something that's pretty epic that's unfolding before us in the crypto markets, and we're very lucky to have with us Brian Quinlivan from Santiment. We're gonna. I don't know what to say, but the market, it's crazy. What's happened and what's unfolded in the last 3 days or so, and yeah, look, if you're just tuning in, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. If you're coming on YouTube, click on the bell icon, choose all, right? Then you'll get notified every time we come on. All right, Brian, I'm just going to hand it over to you so that you can introduce yourself, and then let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andy. So I'm the head of content and marketing over at Santiment, where we have the most comprehensive on-chain and social metrics platform on the planet with over 2,500 coins to analyze. We put an emphasis on ERC20s, but have quite an array of different data depending on what kind of trading strategies you have. And with that said, all of the data has been firing off in many anomalous ways over the past 36 to 48 hours or so, I'd say. And we've got a lot of exciting stuff that we can share here today if you're ready to jump right into it, Andy.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you who are just tuning in, a bit of a background on what's happened in the market. CZ, the founder of Binance, posted a tweet about selling because he was holding around, what was it, $2 billion worth of FTT tokens, which is the native token to the FTX exchange, the number 2 exchange in the world. And since that post, there's been a bank run on FTX, and it's an absolute bloodbath out there. Markets down significantly. So let's jump right into it. Over to you, Brian.
Sure thing. So we've got a lot to cover here. Let me go ahead and present my screen and we'll jump in.
Alrighty, here we go.
Just trying to make sure my camera is not too blurry. Just a couple seconds. That should be better. Okay. So we're looking here at our top 100 market cap assets and the returns that we saw from them over the past 7 days. Obviously, we see one anomaly here, Kunos X, who has kind of launched into the top 100 through this bloodbath. I'm not going to analyze it. Maybe a sparse amount of you know something about this project. I'm not going to pretend I do, because all of the focus has been really on Bitcoin, a little bit on Ethereum, and then just the overall grouping of altcoins that have all kind of hemorrhaged, especially in just the last 24 hours, which we can see here. Bitcoin minus 11%, Ethereum minus 13%, Solana has really been getting crushed. I think I saw it down at $11 for a moment. It's back at 14 for now. But pretty close to just universal double-digit percentage drops from all altcoins right now. And it's been obviously the culprit that most are pointing to would be the FTX disaster, where they did not have the liquidity to support tremendous loss of coins. And the loss of coins, as to the reason, is a bit of a mystery. Many people are fairly confident through the evidence that Sam, the owner, had been mingling with the current user funds in real life and kind of faking volume for the purpose of the exchange making money. And due to market caps continuing to collapse, the liquidity was drying up fast. And Apparently, there was something going on between him and CZ, where CZ gave an initial loan to kind of launch the company 3 years ago, and the payback on that loan was needed, or I should say, assistance was needed after FTX could not sustain the liquidity crunch and demands that it needed. So because there was like a loan in FTT as opposed to Bitcoin or Tether, there were essentially payments that Sam could not make, and as at least a tentative announcement, he is giving at least the global side of FTX over, and the potential of giving the US version of the site as well. So it's obviously creating a lot of headway right now. I saw an announcement about 3 hours ago, which is likely true, about him announcing bankruptcy, the co-founder of FTX. We'll find out in the coming days, I'm sure, what that's all about. But long story short, we're here to look at the metrics as to what we do now. And now that we know the reason, or at least one of the primary reasons, we can start to understand how the pieces will be picked up. Obviously, FTX traders, condolences if you had money in this exchange. I think there was like a 24 to 48 hour window where there was a speculation all over Reddit that this could happen. So for those of you savvy enough to take your money out, good job to you, and condolences to those who maybe didn't see the announcement. You shouldn't be ashamed by any means. This is a pretty unprecedented event. So for now, we just try to figure out where we can go from here. And right now, as we speak, one of the biggest things to keep an eye on would be this. This was an announcement we put out about 2 hours ago. And it's essentially a look at the funding rates on both FTX and DYDX. These are two funding rate exchanges that actually update on an hourly basis. And if you think that FTX is shut down, that's not necessarily true. They're still actively trading, and many have gone super duper long with their Bitcoin, hoping that by some miracle they can get their funds out, and if and when they can, they'll be able to withdraw while markets are going up again, and they can buy the dip. But as we normally see with funding rates, they're essentially counter indicators where the more people are longing compared to shorting, the more likely prices move down. And these blue bars here would be the closing price of Bitcoin every hour over the past 48 hours. This blue line would be the Bitcoin funding rate. When it's on the line, it means it's break even. When it's below the line, that means people are shorting more than longing. And when it's above the line, that means people are longing more than shorting, meaning they're betting in favor of Bitcoin going up. Oftentimes leveraged longing, doing like a 5x, 10x, or even up to 100x on some exchanges that offer that. So as we can see here, for a stretch of about 10 hours or so, there was some extreme longing going on where people were trying to buy the dip right around here, expecting that this one little uptick right here was the start of a rally to go back up. Instead, look what happened to all these longs as the price just fell off a cliff and hit new 2-year lows going into the 15Ks. We finally, I don't know if it would be up right now. Yeah, it is. So look, it's off the axis now.
Oh my gosh.
Altcoins are now shorting like crazy. Bitcoin, as of 2 hours ago, started shorting again. And they're still shorting as of this most previous hour. And look at that. Now that they're starting to short, prices are recovering. So we'll see whether Bitcoin traders continue to long or short with all of this crazy volatility. And at least in the short term, if you're a swing trader, this is one of the most vital metrics you can look at, because prices always swing toward the favor of trying to liquidate all of the leveraged trades out there. And when it's really high, prices are going to move down, typically, not always, but typically to try to liquidate the longs, and prices will move up when people are shorting to try to liquidate the shorts. So in a vacuum, this could actually be a short-term long position. And at least for the past hour, since we saw this go off the axis, prices have recovered, especially for altcoins. So that's interesting to see. What do you think about all that, Andy? I know I've been kind of rambling about it.
No, but wow, seeing it go off the axis, that's just insane, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary axis that we use
Yeah,
because it's mostly within here 99% of the time. So
yeah, yeah.
it's been off the axis before, but it doesn't happen often. So when it does, you can consider that it's a pretty extreme time.
Yeah, yeah. I think look, obviously none of what we're saying today or discussing today is financial advice. But maybe a word of caution to the viewers is, if don't forget risk management. We're in a very volatile asset class. It's very nascent. It's just building up. There are many things. It's going to go through many waves of boom and busts. But it's an industry that's building up, and so if you're invested in this asset class, don't forget to manage your risks. Right? It's you have platform risks, right? You have timing risks. You have capital risks, right? So do what you can to try to ensure that you're comfortable, so that you can still sleep at night. Don't get to a point where you cannot sleep at night. And like Brian said, condolences to those who weren't able to withdraw your funds on time from FTX. And as Brian said correctly, that there was a small window of which there were still funds available, but I think they kind of throttled it for a while as well, while trying to withdraw your funds. So it caught even the best of us off guard. It came left field. It was totally unexpected. So
and a lot of people are acting like the funds are gone. I wouldn't necessarily call that a certainty either. I mean, this is beyond what Santiment offers here, but those that are 100% certain that the funds are all gone just because Sam is announcing bankruptcy, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. If anything, the fact that another company is willingly buying the platform probably means they have an intent to fulfill some sort of losses. It doesn't mean it's all of them, but that's just speculation, of course. And we will have to see what happens with CZ and Binance, and whether they actually stay true to this offer or if it's just a rumor and they may pull out, because I know that they saw that the books were not looking too great for FTX, and that gave some hesitance according to some reports today.
Yeah, I think it's also a little bit sad if FTX just does go down, because it's one of it was a really nice platform to use. Like it's easy,
smooth.
The sub accounts, I love that. Like it's a nice platform to use. So I hope it doesn't go down forever. I hope someone comes in and rescues it and relaunch it. It's one of the nicer platforms to use.
One thing I don't like that they're doing, as someone who believes in the ethics of crypto, is the fact that they are putting a disclaimer up on the exchange now. One of our Santiment team members screenshotted this to me, but they're putting a disclaimer saying you can deposit at your own risk. And when the owner and CEO is announcing that he is declaring bankruptcy, knowing that not 100% of people are aware of the situation going on FTX, they're willingly accepting new deposits now while withdrawals are frozen. And that boggles my mind. And not something that I approve of, that's for sure. I think it's really a shame for traders to not only get the rug pull over the last couple of days, but future traders who don't know and think that this is a great dip buy opportunity and want to put more on FTX. They may not even know that withdrawals are halted because of one little red banner. So that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brian. I actually didn't think I didn't realize. Yeah, but I think you're right. A lot of people are still unaware of what's going on, and they're still depositing funds into FTX. Yeah, I'm fully aligned with what you're saying there. I think the
Right.
other thing to to highlight is the fact that as an exchange, they shouldn't have tried to be more efficient with their capital, because after all, they were users' funds,
Yep.
and it seemed like SBF used users' funds to to invest or to allocate elsewhere, where it should have just been in a third party custodian, sitting somewhere, and
Of
that's it.
course. But why follow the
Yeah.
rules when you don't have to, right? That's
Yeah. Well, funny thing is, FTX is actually regulated, right, by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. So
they are regulated, but the CEO himself was not, right? So there's a
yeah,
difference between
yeah,
an exchange following the rules and what's going on behind the curtains due
yeah,
to gray area allowing for some meddling here and there, and that seems to be what filled them, what sentenced them to where they're at now. So it's a
yeah,
shame, and I just hope everyone gets their money back. That's the number one thing, because anytime these things happen, going back to Mount Gox, it
yeah,
can absolutely dissuade a massive amount of traders from wanting to be part of crypto, who were
yeah,
staying true to crypto up until this point, even with this 1 year bear market.
yeah, yeah. It's sad overall for the industry that this has to happen now, and or the fact that it has to happen at all.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I don't know what else to say. But
Well, why don't we
yeah,
can definitely look at like what's going on now, right? Because that's what people want to know. Where do we go from
sure.
here? Is there actually going to be a bounce after all of this crazy news, or is it just going to kind of um, sidestep from here, or is it going to bleed further? Some people are already calling for uh, sub $5,000 Bitcoin, which would be about another 70% drop from here. So we'll see if that happens,
Ooh.
but
Yeah,
it's, nothing's outside the realm of possibility. And we've watched Bitcoin's market cap bleed for a year and lose about roughly 75 to almost 80% of its value from the all-time high almost exactly 1 year ago today.
yep, yeah,
Most are 90% or below
yeah,
from their tops. So it's crazy. And this model that I'm showing right now is indicative of that. It shows the overbought versus oversold signals, and pretty much everything is universally oversold, or underbought, whatever you want to call it. It essentially means in a trading sector where there is a zero sum game on the short, mid, and long term timescales, traders are underwater, and the average trader is losing uh, anywhere between 20 to 90% of their position in these respective assets. So that's why you see so many here in green, indicating that there could be, at least for the short term, some buy opportunities. It's really about your risk though, because this is not just a usual correction. This is a correction due to a cataclysmic event from a top 5 volume exchange in the world. So obviously you have to take what we're looking at here with a grain of salt. But according to this, there's underbought signals going all over the place, especially this one. I wonder what that is. Oh, it's FTX token, right? So no surprise there that FTX token is the most underbought because everyone is selling it. Nobody wants to touch the native token of an exchange that has just been rumored to be bought or is tentatively being bought by the largest exchange in the world, and their CEO announced for bankruptcy. So it makes sense, but you've got plenty of options here in terms of altcoins with significant underbought signals going on as a result of this huge correction. So play at your own risk, but this confirms what most of you believe. Average trading returns are in the dumpster. And if you want to be an opportunist and try to catch the falling knife, this model supports it.
Yep. Hey, Brian, I'm just wondering, do we have any visibility on the wallets of FTX and to see how quickly they drained during the...
Good question. It was working for some assets and not others. Sometimes we have some limitations on inflows and outflows, but let's take a look for FTX token to start. And we could try Bitcoin and Ethereum as well.
Sure.
But if we go to inflow and we click on exchanges, you'll see a loading thing. Usually if it doesn't load for a few seconds, it means there's just too much craziness and volatility for it to load. And I don't want to sit here looking at a loading signal. So this is probably long enough to say it's not worth it. So we're going to try Ethereum next.
Sure.
Because they're all going to look very interesting. Here we go.
Yeah.
So Ethereum is working. We can go down to FTX. There we go, FTX Exchange. Doesn't look that crazy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking about inflow, and now let's take a look at outflow, which should be frozen. So yeah, there we go. So this was the largest funds outflow of Ethereum since mid-May. I'm actually surprised that there was another time this year when there was more outflow, but regardless, this point right here, which actually happened 3 days ago before the big fall off and all of the news broke, that's when a ton of Ethereum was being taken. So, very interesting there. I think
some
we
insiders.
Yeah. I think we posted
some
about it too.
Wow.
Check this out. So obviously Alameda has been involved, and the lack of transparency between them and FTX let our team do a little bit of digging so we could look at exactly what's been going on with Ethereum and what the primary wallets that appear to be connected to Alameda. So this blue and yellow chart that I'm about to open is the 82 wallet with FTX Ethereum profits in all likelihood. And we saw right here, Ethereum held by them went down to very close to zero. It looks like 576 Ethereum after they were holding a little over 300,000 just a few days earlier.
Wow. Yeah.
So this is speculation, mind you, but we think very probably this is a wallet connected to their Ethereum profits. And then here is the Ethereum and stablecoin withdrawal wallet, the main one. And they were holding at one point about 325,000 Ethereum, suddenly dropped in June, went up, dropped, and gradually they went all the way down to, looks like somewhere around 23 to 25 Ethereum.
Yeah.
It's held in that wallet. So yeah, that's 99.999% of Ethereum going away from this wallet. And I mean, this is all just a theory, but maybe they knew something going on in July. Maybe this was already, because up until that point, it was all going up, 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 up. And then what was this all about?
Yeah, that's a massive drop there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, good question. It's fascinating stuff. A few other posts that we put up in the past week or so that I think could be good to highlight. For those who are looking for a vote of confidence, we saw that the whales and sharks that we deem addresses anywhere between 100 to 1 million Ethereum, and this is a very wide range, but if you combine them, they tend to follow the price of Ethereum versus Bitcoin quite well. You can see as they tick down, the price of Ethereum versus BTC went down. And then right here, when they started accumulating, boom, here comes the price going up, goes all the way up until they start to dump right there. And Ethereum went down quite clearly. And yes, we had a little bit of a hump there, but it's been down again. And right when it started to hit that bottom, we saw a big accumulation. And this was the largest single day buy since September 5th, which is certainly something considering it's been a lot of just declining for these wallets. And in total, this accumulation was worth $783 million. So yeah, that's quite a jump.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this can actually be considered a good thing with key stakeholders kind of holding strong and saying, okay, I'm gonna buy some more Ethereum while it's under what is it, under 1,500 right now?
Yeah. I think it's way under that. It's probably 1,100.
Oh, 11, yeah, you're right. I'm thinking of
1,100,
Bitcoin,
yeah.
15,000. But yeah,
Oh,
Ethereum is
yeah.
in the 1100s.
Yeah. Definitely 1100s. Yeah.
Yeah. We also saw, some panic here, people calling for a crash, and this was in the midst of it. And typically, once we start to see a recognition from the crowd that a crash is happening, that kind of is the ultra fear signal and can indicate that prices may eventually rebound after the weak hands are all exiting due to fear of further crashing.
Yep.
Here's another one. FTX and DYDX. So we talked about funding rates. This was the huge shorting, right? Basically a day ago, and we had a rebound. And then the shortings, if we went past this point, they went away and started going super long, and that's when the big crash happened. And you actually saw that on both FTX and DYDX, which is interesting. So after the announcement for FTX that everything is frozen and people may not get their money, people can still trade. So they're all just going super long and hoping for some miracle because they, with that hopeless feeling, it's more likely that people are going to be a little reckless and risky and just say, screw it, I'm going super long and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the, I'd have to say one of the biggest events that I've experienced in crypto, and I've been in crypto for a while.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It really is. Here's another one, Binance Coin. Right after the announcement was made, when both CZ and Sam were posting on Twitter to let everyone know about the letter of intent purchase from CZ, Binance Coin jumped 20% while the rest of the markets were staying relatively flat. So that's obviously a massive green candle, and was indicative of traders being more inclined to own the native token for the #1 exchange in the world. As of now, it's kind of flattened out and has gone right back into the middle of the pack. But BNB could be sneaky, according to the early reaction right after the news broke. So something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, it's interesting how quickly, the news spreads and how quickly the markets react to it.
Completely agree. I mean, who knows if it's insiders or just, early adopters of the news who are trying to get a head start on the competition and kind of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy by pushing up the price, expecting it to keep going up. But for now, that pump for BNB is at least on pause. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some other, future push to get the price up again. But maybe people are waiting for news to be a little more definitive because it's all kind of by the rumor mode at the moment.
Yeah.
We can also see that stable coins have been going way up in large wallets. So this was right before the crash. This was about 48 hours ago. We saw that whales were adding a lot more USD coin, which they have been all the way back in mid-June. This was back when Tether was seeing a little bit of decoupling, or I should say depegging, where the price went below $1. So a lot of people were dumping Tether for USD coin. And the trust was kind of regained back, or at least relative to what it was here. and the whales started accumulating more Tether and USD coin together. So when you're seeing the two top stable coins both being accumulated by wallets holding $100,000 to $10 million, it's generally a good sign that whales are adding to their buying power with future plans for when the prices look right for them to pounce. So what we don't want to see is Bitcoin whales dumping and stablecoin whales dumping and just exiting crypto altogether. But this shows that stablecoins are starting to be collected by these large holders here.
So they're just collecting their dry powder and waiting to redeploy when market conditions look right.
That seems to be what it looks like. You never know if they're planning to pounce or if it's kind of just they're figuring out what to do. But it's never a bad sign when the largest stakeholders are adding more stable coins rather than dumping it off to the smaller ones.
Yep.
But yeah, we talked about Bitcoin. So this is the stablecoin line. Once again, that's just Tether, where you can see that it's back up to pretty much early June, late May levels. That's a good sign. Ethereum, this uptick is something to watch closely. Social dominance for Bitcoin is also interesting. We like to look at this line when Bitcoin is being discussed at a higher rate than usual. It generally is good for prices. When it starts to fall into negative territory, not so good for prices. So it's something to keep an eye on. We did start to see a bit of an uptick, and it really depends how many traders panic and get out of their speculative altcoins and want to jump into the quote unquote safe haven, which is Bitcoin when you're talking about non-stable coins. So when that happens, it's generally a good sign because Bitcoin is still the king of crypto according to its market cap and the asset that has the most trading pairs to other assets. So whenever there's an altcoin trade, there's also a Bitcoin trade, and that leads to good things. So we want more focus to be on Bitcoin instead of just the latest pump and dump coin that doesn't really organically grow the sector the way Bitcoin does.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I just want to add, like, Bitcoin maxis are gonna hate me for saying this, but you know, it's a multi-coin world, and I think that's a good thing because it affords, you know, the people the freedom to choose, and also it, you know, in times like these when people were scrambling for the front door and trying to exit FTX, for example, you know, if you couldn't exit in one coin, you could quickly convert that into a different coin on a different network and exit through there. And really, it was, you know, the luck of the draw, depending on what the exchange had in stock at that time to exit. And so, you know, you'd go by trial and error. Oh, okay, I cannot exit with Bitcoin because they've run out of, you know, apparently they've run out of Bitcoin. So then you convert that to ETH and try and exit through there and see if that works, right? Otherwise, you'd convert that into, you know, maybe some BUSD on a different network and try to exit from there and see if that works. So I think having multiple, you know, networks actually helps, you know, especially when everyone's rushing for the front door.
Yeah, to those savvy enough to test different outlets, nicely done. I think that's a really savvy move, and you know, that logically makes sense. If an asset doesn't have the liquidity, the withdrawal doesn't work. If it does, and you're trying enough different buttons to get your money out, you know, you can eventually find a solution. And I'm sure most of those solutions are gone now, but for a while, I think the people who really understand crypto the best were able to figure out some loopholes in their favor.
Yeah. I think we've come to the end. Or do you have anything else you'd like to share, Brian?
I mean, I know we did kind of a turbo round, and I tried to fit in as many metrics as we could to go along with all of this news. But you know, just as you said, Andy, toward the beginning of this call, we're kind of telling our community the same thing. This is the time when you got to be safe. It doesn't mean you have to be a diamond hand and hold until the asset goes into the ground, if you do fear that. But it does mean you have to be disciplined. And a lot of people tend to be very emotional during these kinds of times. And the best thing you could do is stay objective. Pay attention to the metrics here. This could be a further cataclysmic event, or it could be a golden opportunity, but we don't have the answers. No one is a perfect trader, and trading in general is kind of a game of probabilities, not certainties. So if something happens 80% of the time, understand that you still might fail 1 out of 5 times. But if you like those odds and you want to risk it, it's your money, and you should do as you please, just as crypto is known to allow. So that's my take on all this. And remember, tomorrow is also CPI day. We didn't even really talk about that, but that's gonna add a whole nother layer of volatility that could be good, right? Because we had a completely independent event push prices down. I have a template here. We'll kind of make this the last topic because I know we're going over.
That's right. I'm sure the viewers appreciate this. We're in unprecedented times anyway.
Yeah, no worries. So this is Bitcoin versus the S&P versus gold. We can see Bitcoin in green here, following pretty closely to the teal line, which is the S&P 500. You saw the S&P kind of had a much bigger relative bounce than Bitcoin, even though they're on different axes. So obviously the S&P is not nearly as volatile. It just looks that way on this. So the S&P basically had an all-time high here, or I should say a 6-month high right here in August, while Bitcoin still had a long way to go from its drop in June. But you can see they stayed pretty tightly wrapped to one another right up until what happened today. And yes, like the S&P had a pretty red day as well, but absolutely nothing compared to what happened with Bitcoin. And that's interesting because decouplings generally are favorable to crypto in the long term. Certainly doesn't mean in the next week. The fact that crypto crashed a ton and the S&P just had a bad day, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's bull run time from here, but does mean there's further evidence of separation that gets the correlation between the two closer to zero, rather than Bitcoin having a reliance on the S&P 500 or an inverse correlation. We don't want either. We want none. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now. So if there's one silver lining to all this, it is that. And if the CPI data starts to tighten the correlation right back up again, then oh well, now we know. But that's going to be the big test. Does this event cause more of a long-term break between the two, or is it just an anomaly where, once this economic report from the US comes out, everything just goes right back to Bitcoin trading like a high leveraged tech stock?
Yeah. That I fully agree. And all right, so on a lighter note, Brian, how much sleep have you gotten in the last 48 to 72 hours?
Do I seem tired?
No, I am, because I've had very little sleep.
Honestly, I sleep okay. I'm not a big crypto owner, believe it or not. I mostly analyze because that's my job, and I love crypto and just think it's a world-changing, it's a world-changing sector that in the long run will have dramatic positive effects for how people handle their money. No, but honestly, I'm okay. I'm empathetic to all the people that are struggling through this and seeing darker days, especially those who were impacted directly from FTX closing. So I hope this all resolves with a good bow tie at some point. So for now, it's going to be a stressful few days and probably a few weeks, maybe even months before we know how this chapter of FTX ends.
Yeah, and let's hope it doesn't have the same ending as something like Mount Gox, because that would be, dragging it longer than it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, it is very different. Bitcoin, I think it was 2011, right? When that happened, or was it 13?
2013, I think.
One of those.
Yeah.
Either way, it was about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin was still in kind of its infancy. There still aren't really many regulations, so I won't say it was less regulated, but it's a little more regulated now, and more commonplace for the average Joe to own Bitcoin.
Yep.
And at that time, there was so much lack of transparency. I think to this day, we still don't have evidence to know whether the owners ran with traders' bags or whether it was a true hack like they claim.
Yep.
But either way, it took a decade until some of that money started to get returned. So if you were patient through all this, maybe you actually got something back out of that fiasco, even if it was a penny on the dollar. But yeah, I think this is different because it was an honest. Well, I shouldn't say honest. I think FTX's owners did it to themselves by handling users' funds that they didn't actually own, or the funds were not actually real on the exchange.
Yeah.
But it has a buyer, right? So all the funds are basically on hold on FTX. However much is actually on FTX is up for debate. But in Mt. Gox's case, there wasn't anyone there to be the hero to save the exchange or convert it to another exchange or get absorbed. And at least that's what's being propagated right now, is that Binance is going to take over operations, and maybe FTX runs again in the near future, or the funds get absorbed and CZ does the right thing and pays people off. There's no one in crypto that cares more about their rep and making sure that people trust them than CZ. And there's a lot of people like that who want to be trusted, but in terms of financial impact, if CZ is not true to his word on something and funds are suddenly not Safu, as he likes to say, Seifu.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of financial loss coming his way, and I think that's very important to him to stand by his word.
Yeah. On another interesting note, I was reading up on the the evidence presented to the court when Elon Musk was in the midst of purchasing Twitter. SBF actually offered up to a maximum of $15 billion to
for Twitter
contribute. Yeah.
As like a partial owner. Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And can you imagine that? So he was thinking about using the funds from, like your funds and my funds or whatever was on FTX to, as part of that contribution to Elon in purchasing Twitter. Yeah. So, there's another trivial bit of info to share.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to be part of the mob and raise your pitchforks and kind of hate on FTX's ownership and Sam in particular right now. And yes, he absolutely objectively did some things wrong, majorly wrong. But until we get the whole story, assuming we ever do get the whole story, I would advise that people don't all jump into the mosh pit of hate. Not that there's really much impact on whether you hate him or not, but I like to be one who understands exactly what happened for real before everything is laid to rest. And there's all sorts of rumors that come out after this kind of news breaks that will automatically make people find or search for a scapegoat. And the easy answer is Sam, and that probably is the most probable scapegoat for all of this. But until something is objectively proven as to why this collapse happened, keep your ears peeled for some new stories to come out over the next week. about what actually went down between Sam and CZ and
Mm.
how much money was actually, offed by Alameda, how much Sam was personally involved. Maybe he didn't know nearly as much about it. It seems unlikely that he didn't know, but like I said, I like to just hear all the facts first. And if I'm in the minority about that over, not making assumptions already, so be it.
Yeah. All right. I think on that note, it's been a very interesting 48 to 72 hours. Emotions have been running high. Stories are coming out. Memes are, a lot of memes are coming out, left, right, and center. I wish the viewers, all the best. I hope you stay safe. Don't forget risk management. Right. That's if you're going to be putting your money into crypto, you need to arm yourself with the skills and knowledge of knowing what you're doing. Otherwise, it can get pretty rough. It's like, learning how to drive a car before going on to the actually operating it, right? So it takes time, right? When you first get your license and you operate a car, you're still not fully proficient with it, right? It takes time to get used to it, to figure things out. Experience counts, right? Just tread carefully.
I love that metaphor. Absolute icing on the cake, just like driving a car.
Any last any final words before we end the session?
I don't think so. I think I've covered everything. You did a great job on giving your perspective too, Andy. I appreciate it. And just as a reminder to everyone, app.santiment.net/pricing. Come over here, get a free 2-week trial, and enjoy our metrics for a couple weeks and get familiar with how they work. Then decide whether it's worth paying $44 to $49 a month, which for a lot of our users, they've testified that it's made them a whole lot more than the platform costs on a monthly basis. And we've got a referral link. Use Andy's code Equities Tracker. And if you do, you'll get, I believe, 25% off of at least your first month. It might be more than that. So check that out. Remember the code. And once you're in, jump into our Discord and talk with us about metrics. Andy's in there with us. And we always have great community conversations about what's going on in the markets.
Yeah. Definitely jump on the platform. It's in the world of crypto investing, it's amazing how transparent some things can be, and with Santiment, it actually provides, it arms you with that knowledge, with that information, that transparency to see how things are going. Right, you look at on-chain metrics, you look at market sentiment. I look at it every day. It's a fantastic platform. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thanks for the
comment. All right, and on that note, have a great evening, Brian, and thank you so much for coming on. At such a it's the right as the saga unfolds. It's good to keep the users informed. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in. Brian, thank you so much.
All righty, guys. Take care. Thanks so much, Andy. Have a good one.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.